Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our subject, Readings in Philippine History. We are still in our chapter 4, which is all about the social, political, economic, and cultural issues in Philippine history. So we have the same objectives, no? And now we'll be talking about the evolution of Philippine taxation and taxation in Spanish Philippines, as well as the primary source Mariano Herbosa writes to Rizal about taxes. And now let's proceed to the evolution of Philippine taxation. So we have concluded our discussion on the evolution of constitutions and agrarian reform. Di ba? Muna ito ang last ng mga discussions. So, bearing witness to the injustices, inequalities, and abuses that have occurred under various countries and mga presidents. And now, turning to our new discussion, let us see into the issues of taxations in the Philippines. Atong i-examine ang mga problems, injustices, and inequalities that persist and how we are going to give solutions or recommendations. Now, in today's world, taxation no, is a reality that all citizens must contend with for the primary reason that government raise revenue from the people they govern to be able to function fully. So it emphasizes that citizens must deal with taxation because governments rely on it to generate the necessary funds for their operations and services. And essentially, taxation serves as the primary means through which governments finance their activities and meet the needs of the people they govern. And in exchange for the taxes that people pay, the government promises to improve the citizens' lives through good governance. Again, the government promises to improve ang kinabuhi sa mga Filipino citizen through a good governance. That is a taxation. And taxation is a government a mechanism to raise funds, mo na, no? Mo ni ang mga mechanism sa government in terms of taxation to raise funds, develop, and evolve through time in the context of the Philippines. And we must understand that it came from our experiences in colonial. Diba? And in the Philippines, taxation, it is important to know that our system of taxation has roots in our history of being colonized by other countries. And in today's world, no, taxes are something everyone deals with because they are uh, they are how the governments get money to do their jobs properly. So taxes are like the payment we make to help our government run smoothly and provide us with services. And that is a taxation. And now let's see kung unsay nahitabo or what happened in in taxation during the Spanish Philippines. So the Philippines may have abundant natural resources, and that is true even before the enroachment of the Spaniards. So if we say enroachment, mo na siya ang pagsakop sa mga Spaniards. But our ancestors were mainly involved in a subsistence economy, and while the payment of tribute or taxes mo na gitawag nato nga buhis, buwis or kanang handog. The same lang na sila or kanang obligation to to provide labor services to the datos in some early Filipino communities diri sa Philippines may resemble taxation, and it is essentially different from the contemporary meaning of the concept. So even before the arrival of Spaniards, the Philippines had plenty of natural resources, but our ancestors mostly live off the land, not engaging in an extensive trade. While there were forms of tribute, no, money, form of tribute known as buwis or handog, and obligation to provide. Again, obligation to provide labor services to local leaders in some early Filipino communities, and they were quite different from modern taxation as we understand it today. So here, the Spanish arrival, no, changed or altered, no, change the subsistence system in the Philippines by introducing the payment of tributos or tributes, no, similar to what was practiced in other colonies in the Americas. And the purpose was to generate resources para i-finance ang mga maintenance sa islands, including sa salaries of the government officials and the expenses of the clergy. And one significant form of taxation was the tribute known as motong tributos. Moto siya, no? In Spanish, which was, mo ni siya ang mandatory payment exacted from native Filipinos. So, ang kaning tribute was initially, take note ha, kaning tribute was initially collected in the form of goods or labor, but later ni transition siya nga gi-include ang cash payments. And the tribute was a major source of revenue or kanang kita for a Spanish colonial government, and gigamit nila to finance ang mga colonial endeavors and para ma-maintain ang control over sa archipelago. And the Spaniards, no, encountered difficulty in collecting tribute because settlement was scattered, no? Ang settlement daw dispersed or scattered. So they address this, ilaning gi-address by introducing the system of reduction. Mo na another system, no, ang reduction. Creating towns, no? Creating towns or mo ni ang mga pueblos where ang mga Filipinos gathered and given, no, awarded or given plots to cultivate. Ano siya. And later, the settlements were managed by encomienderos. Again, were managed or were handled by encomienderos who were rewarded. Isa ni sila sa mga girewardan sa Spanish crown para sa ilahang service. Again, ang settlement daw were managed by in encomenderos. Those exempted from payment of tributos, no, katong mga exempted daw sa payment of tributos included ang kaning mga principals such as alcaldes, gobernadors, cabezas di barangay, mga soldiers and members of the civil guard, government officials, and kaning vagrants. So the Filipinos who previously focused on agricultural production for their own needs had to, unsa man, had to increase their output para ma-meet ang demands of taxation. And this led to the introduction of a more intensive agricultural system. And later on, and later on, half of the tribute, no, half take note ha, half of the tribute was paid in cash, while the other was paid with produce. Mao na siya. And this agreement no, helped finance the conquest of the Philippines. And this finance, mo na siya. Next is, toward the end of 16th century, the Manila-Acapulco trade was established through the galleons, a way by which the Spaniards could make sure that European presence would be sustained. So once a year, ang galleon daw would be loaded up with the merchandises, matunay makuan unya no sa nga mga merchandises gikan sa Asia padulong sa New Spain or sa Mexico and back. So the primary purpose of this trade, no, kaning trade, Manila Acapulco trade, the main purpose of this trade was to facilitate the exchange of goods between the Asia and the Americans under sa Spanish control. So by establishing uh, the trade route of Manila Acapulco, ang mga Spaniards aimed to ensure the steady flow of valuable commodities from Asia padulong sa Americas or Americans. So the trade route wala lang ni siya nag-facilitated sa exchange of goods but also nag-contribute ni siya sa establishment and para sa maintenance of Spanish colonial rule in the Americas. So the revenue or ang kita nga generated from trade in Asia goods help to finance ang mga Spanish colonial activities and para ma-maintain ang ilahang presence in that region. And additionally, no, the Manila Acapulco trade route mo na siya ang napo ni siya role in the global economy of that time, no, kay iyang gilink ang mga economy sa Asia, the Americas and Europe through trade and commerce. And this improved the economy of the Philippines and reinforced the control of the Spaniards all over the country. And tax collection was still very poor, and subsidy from the Spain would be needed through the Situado Rail, delivered from Mexican treasury to the Philippines through the galleons. And this subsidy stopped as Mexico became independent in 1820. So if we say kaning ko ano, Situado Rail, no, it was a fixed annual subsidy. Again, fixed annual subsidy nga gi-provide sa mga Spanish government sa colonial government sa Pilipinas. And kanipon nga subsidy no was intended nga para i-cover ang mga expenses sa mga colonial administration, apil na din haa ang military expenses and mga salaries sa government officials. Mo na siya ang Situado Rail. So mo to siya. However, despite the economic benefits brought by the trade route, no, of course, na dyan mga benefits to economic benefits tong trade route. So the Spanish colonial government in the Philippines, nagapod sila yung mga na-face ng mga challenges, particularly sa income nga generated or the revenue generation and the administration. So the tax collection in the Philippines was often on saman, no, was often inefficient and inadequate. So mao nang tax collection was still very poor. And in 1884, the the payment of tribute was put to a stop and was replaced by a poll tax no collected through a certificate of identification nga ginatawag nga cedula personal. And this is a required from every resident and must be carried while traveling. So marami siyang passport nato no if you are going to go abroad, dapat dala-dala din nimo ang imuhang passport or kung sa una cedula personal. Unlike the tribute, ang payment of cedulas is by person, dili by family. Okay? So to better know what is cedula personal, mo ni siya serve as a identifications for residents and was acquired ni siya to be carried all the times, especially when traveling. So, kung di naman ni siya madala o failure to present a valid cedula could result in fines or nakay mga penalties nga mabayaran. So, the replacement, no? Kaning replacement of the tribute system with the cedula personal tax reflected that the evolving administration and fiscal policies ato na ma-discuss, no, of the Spanish colonial government in the Philippines during the late 19th century. So, mga to siya. Again, the replacement sa tribute system with the cedula personal mo na ang nag-reflect nga evolving ang administration and ang mga fiscal policies of the Spanish colonial government sa Pilipinas. And payment of cedula is progressive, no? Progressive jud siya and according to income categories. Kung taas mong income, taas ang kuha. Kung mubo ang income, mubo ra ang payment sa imuhang cedula. Just like karon, kung magkuha kag sidula, kung dako ang imuhang income annually, dako pod ang collection sa imuhang sidula. Kung gamay lang pod ang collection. So this system, however, was a heavy burden for the peasant and was easy for the wealthy. Oh, that's reality, ha? But because of this, revenue or mga kita ng mga collection greatly increased and became the main source of the government income. And the Chinese in the Philippines were also made to pay their discriminatory cedula, which was bigger than what the Filipinos paid. So ang kaning statement, no, kaning Chinese in the Philippines nga magbayad sila. Nag-indicate ni siya sa historical practice sa Pilipinas where ang mga Chinese individuals na nagpuyo in the country were subjected to a discriminatory version of cedula system nga mag pay sila og higher taxes compared sa Filipino citizen. And imposition of higher taxes on the Chinese. Mo po na siya ang nag-serve not only as a means of revenue generation but also mo po niya ang tool para i-maintain ang social and economic control over the minority group. And there are two direct taxes now were divided in 1872. There are two direct taxes nga gi-introduce and impose on urban incomes in the Philippines. So naatay ginatawag nga urbana. So kani this tax, no, ang kaning urbana recording. Again, this tax was levied, no, levied on the annual rental value of urban estate properties, essentially, no, urban real estate mo na siya, ha, value of an urban real estate. And essentially ang kaning urban na targeted properties owner within urban nga mga areas or kanang naa sa mga syudad nga areas and was based on the assessed rental values of their properties. So therefore, ang kaning urbana tax, nag-aim ni siya para i-generate ang mga income or yes, i-generate revenue from the income derived sa kanang pag-rent out sa mga urban properties nga katong naa sa mga syudad. While ang kaning industrial tax, no, this was imposed po ni siya on lahi-lahi nga sources of income related to kanang mga industrial and commercial nga mga activities, including nga kanang na mga salaries, na mga dividends, and of course, profits. And ang kaning industrial tax po, no, it targeted individuals and businesses engage in industrial commercial endeavors aiming to tax the income they generated from these activities. And these taxes were universal and affected all kinds of economic activity except sa mga agricultural, which was exempt to encourage growth. Next, kaning indirect taxes, no, such as customs duties, later ata na ma-discuss what is custom duties, were imposed on exports and imports to further raise revenue, especially during the 19th century when economic growth increased exponentially. So there was no excise taxes collected by the Spaniards throughout the years of colonialism. So during the Spanish colonial period sa Pilipinas, ang indirect taxes no such as kaning custom duties nag-impose ni og significant role para ma-raise ang revenue for the colonial government. So ang kaning custom duties were imposed on both exports and imports with the aim of generating revenue from internal trade nga mga activities. And take note also that these custom duties, no, which are imposed on goods crossing borders and kanang naay mga excise nga taxes or internal taxes levied on goods produced or consumed domestically. So the absence of taxes during the Spaniards colonial period, it meant that the colonial government nag-relied lang po sila primarily on the custom duties and other indirect taxes para mag-generate og mga revenue sa international trade activities rather than taxing domestic production or katong consumption directly. So the colonial government, no, gained a significant income from various monopolies so kaning mga monopolies nga involved ni siya og mga exclusive control over sa mga production, sa sale or sa pag-distribute sa mga certain goods and services nga gi-allow ang mga government nga to generate revenue by exploiting sa kani sa different nga mga markets. So some of the monopolies operated by the colonial government kay kaning stamp paper, no? So, ang the government nag-control sa production and sale stamp paper which was required sa kanang mga legal documents and kanang mga legal nga mga transaction. And manufacturer sale of kaning mga imnunon, no? The manufacturer and sale of mga ilimnonon were monopolized by the colonial government because this ensured nga ang kaning government could regulate the profit from production and consumption sa mga alcoholic nga mga beverages and kaning cockpits no also nagjudigay di ay ni sa una ning sabong no. Cockfighting was a popular form of entertainment sa kaninga times sa Pilipinas and the government held a monopoly over the operation of cockpits where this event took place and the kaning opium mo ni siya ang kanang we all know naman nga it is a addictive nga substance no. So the colonial government also monopolized the sale of opium no. And this monopoly no played a crucial role in making the colony financially self sufficient, reducing reducing its reliance on external funding such as kaning Situado Real, which was financial aid provided sa kaning Treasury of Spain or kanang Spanish crown. So, forced labor was a character of Spanish colonial taxation in the Philippines and was required from the Filipinos. So, required ni siya sa mga Filipinos, no? And with this, no, kaning surplus of income, kaning generated from tobacco monopoly, contributed not only to the colony's own treasury but also the treasury of Spain. So, ang kaning surplus revenue helped to finance the colonial administration, infrastructure development, and kanang other expenses, ultimately bolstering the colonial economy. And gawas na po dayon to see forced labor or in Spanish that is polos y servicios it was indeed a characteristics of Spanish colonial taxation sa Pilipinas. So, under ani nga system, no, forced labor, ang Filipinos daw required to provide a labor sa colonial government, typically in the form of public works or military services. So, this forced labor was often imposed as a form of tribute or bayad sa taxes, and failure nga mag-comply ani could result in penalties or even punishment. And forced labor as well, it was utilized, no, for various purposes, including defending the territory sa colony and mamit ang labor demands of industries such as wood cutting or kanang shipbuilding. This was particularly important during the area sa katong galleon trade. And while forced labor was also a source of exploitation and oppression for the Filipino population. So many Filipinos were subjected to harsh working conditions, and the practice of forced labor was often accompanied by abuses of power by colonial authorities. So through the polo system, no, through the polo system, which required male Filipinos to perform mandatory labor or mandatory military service for the colonial government. Indeed, ang kaninga system is a heavy burden on the population sa mga Filipinos because the obligation often resulted in adverse consequences such as nag-decrease, nag-increase ang death rate among those subjected to harsh working conditions and military services. So additionally, no, many individuals sought in the mountains to evade, no, flight to the mountains to evade the demand of the polo system, leading to a decrease in the population, particularly during the 17th century. And however, over time, naman yung mga changes, there were changes in the implementation of the polo system that aimed to alleviate some of its burden on the Filipino population. And one significant change was the organization of polos and servicios. Ano siya? And at the municipal level, no? Again, one significant change was the organization of polos and servicios at the municipal level, no, which nga nag-allowed siya og more efficient nga mga administration and distribution of labor obligations. And pag decentralized ani nga system is likely made it to become more manageable for local authorities to oversee and implement. So thereby, it result by reducing some of the harshness and mga negative impacts experienced sa kaninga population. And the labor extracted or kanang kinukuha from the polo system nga gi-utilize for some purposes including public works project aimed at providing infrastructure throughout the colony. So some of the uses of the forced labor included building roads, no, and bridges. So laborers were often tasked with constructing and of course maintaining the roads and bridges para ma-facilitate ang transportation and trade within the colony. And po tayo municipal office nga mga services. Now, some individuals were required to serve in a municipal offices para mag-assist in administrative tasks or other municipal duties. And others were appointed as well. Others are appointed were appointed as a night guards para ang ilahang task is to maintain the security and order within the communities during nighttime hours. And apoy labor nga kota no. Ano mo ni siya ang it was under the polo system nga ang mga lalaki again ang mga lalaki were typically required to provide labor for a certain number of days each year. So initially, this labor, no obligation could be as high as 40 days per year, but it was later reduced to 15 days year in 1884. So here, the option to opt out of the labor requirement by paying a fee known as falias. Mo na siya, ha? It was provided sa mga individuals who were unable or unwilling to fulfill their labor obligation under sa kani nga polo system. So the falias, no, typically amounted to 3 pesos. Take note, ha, it was amounted 3 pesos per annum or annually. Dako na kayo ng 3 pesos sa una. And those who pay this fee were exempted from having to perform labor. Kung makabayad ka ani, you are exempted to perform labor or katong mga uh, military services for this specific period. No. So, however, this option was often marred by corruption because as the collection of falias was conducted at sa mga municipal level, di ba? Collected in the municipal level, where local officials could exploit the system for personal gain, ba? And these corrupt practices led to the loss of kita or revenues that should have been directed towards sa public funds, earning the nickname mga kiadas or droppings. So by the second half of the 19th century, no, the second half of 19th century, the term prestation personal or the personal services, no, came into use para ma-describe ang labor obligation under the pulo system. So ang kaning terminology shift mo na siya ang nag reflect changes in how the labor system was nakita and labeled, perhaps as an attempt to distance it from its earlier association with forced labor and exploitation. So however, despite the change sa kaning terminology, the fundamental nature of the labor obligation remained largely unchanged, with individuals still required to provide labor or pay a fee para ma-fulfill ang ilahang obligation under the colonial system. And taxation during Spanish, no? Taxation during the Spanish colonial period sa Pilipinas was a heavy burden sa mga Filipino. And corruption among mga local elites na gihapon, no? Corruption from local na, corruption of the principales, like mga local elites known as the principals, was a significant issue during ani nga time. And ang principales, no, were often former datus and local elites who were co-opted by the Spanish authorities to assist in the administration and control sa mga native population. So these principles were given positions of authority within the local government, such as cabezas de barangay or kanang muna ang village chief or alcaldes, muna ang local officials, which granted them considerable power and influence over sa mga communities. But unfortunately, no, many of these local elites abuse nila ilang position para sa personal gain, nga enriching themselves by kanang embezzling tributes or kanang taxes or falias collected sa mga tao. And instead of using these funds for the betterment of the communities or the fulfillment sa mga public services, corruption nga mga principales often gibusa nila ang kwarta para sa ilang kaugalingon, leading to further impoverishment and suffering sa mga peasant nga population. And taxation appeared progressive, but the disparity between the less taxed principales and the heavily taxed peasant made rich richer and poor poorer. No? So, however, in practice, the system often resulted in widening disparities between the less taxed principales or mga local elites and the heavily taxed peasant, exacerbating the gap between the rich and the poor. As the result, the rich became richer, benefiting sa mga privileged position within the local hierarchy and their ability nga mag-exploit the tax system for their personal gain lang jud. Meanwhile, ang mga poor peasants already struggling under the weight of heavy taxation found themselves further impoverished as their resources were siphoned away by both the colonial authorities and the corrupt local elites. So now, at natanawon ang primary source ni Mariano Herbosa nga nagsulat siya og letter kang Rizal about taxes. So the tax, with regard to your question on this, the answer is very long, as it is cause of the prevailing misery here. So more on readings lang tadi ang apart ha. What I can write you will be only one half of the story, and even Dumas, Senior Dumas, cannot exhaust the subject. Nevertheless, I'll try to write what I can, though I may not be able to give a complete story. You may at least know half of it. So here, there are many kinds of taxes. What they called irrigated rice land, even if has no water, kung wala tubig, must pay a tax of 50 cabanas of palay, and land with 6 cabanas of seed pay 5 pesos in cash. Grabe. The land they call dry land, that is planted to sugarcane, maize, and other pay different rates, like rates. Even if the agreed amount is 30 pesos for the land with 6 cabanas of seed, if they see that the harvest is good, kung good ang harvest, ilataasan ang increase. But they don't decrease it if ang harvest is poor, di ba? Injustices. There is a land whose tax is 25 pesos or 20 pesos according to custom. So most troublesome are the residential laws in the town. There is no fixed rule that is followed while their whim or ilahang kagustuhan. Hence, even if it only span in size, if a stone wall is added, 50 pesos must be paid. The lowest being 20 pesos. But kung ang nipa or kugon house pays only 1 peso for an area of 10 fathoms, so kaning fathoms, mo ni siya a unit of land equal to kanang 6 feet. So another feature of the system is that on the day you accept the conditions, the contract will be written, which cannot be changed for 4 years, but tax is increased taga year. For this reason, for 2 years now, the payment of tax is confused, and little by little, the fear of the residents of Filipinos here in the word vacant is being dispelled or natanggal. So, which our ancestors had feared so much. So the result is bargaining. They, like they do in buying fish, it's advisable to offer a low figure at payment can be postponed. Unlike before, when people were very much afraid to pay after May. So I am looking for a receipt to send you, but I cannot find any because we don't get a receipt every time we pay. O, diba? Palandaan, red flag na, diba? Anyway, it is a valueless as it does not state the amount paid. It only says that the tax for that year was paid without stating whether it is 5 centavos, 25 centavos, 100, or 1,000 pesos. And the resident who asks or get the said receipt accept it with closed eyes. No? Ano na lang jud. So the receipt has no signature in the place where the amount paid ought to be, although it bears their name. Ay pangalan ko na signature. Do you think it's valid? So until now, I cannot comprehend why some are signed and others are not. Injustices again. This is one or more This is more or less what is happening here in the payment of the land tax, and it has been so for many years since I can remember. So beside this, the taxes of the plants in the field that are far from the town, like the land in Pansol, are various. The tax on the pallets is separate from the tax of maize, mongo, and garlic. There is no limit to this tax, for they fix it themselves. Since July, no one buys sugar, and since June, locust, morning locust ka ng mga grasshopper, no? Large number of makadamage sa mga crops are all over the town, and they destroying palay is and sugar cane, which is what we regret here. So the governor gave 50 pesos to pay the catchers of locust, but when they took them to the town hall, they were paid only 25 cents, ikavan and a half. And it seems that the locusts are not decreasing according to the guests. According to the guests of the residents here, only 300 cabanas of locusts have caught in this town. So many still remain, though the governor has not sent any more money. So the people have not stopped catching them. So that's a fascinating primary source of Mariano Herbosa writing to Rizal about the taxes provides a valuable insight into the taxation system during that period and its impact on the lives of people in the Philippines. It's likely that Herbosa's letter contains a more detailed description of the challenges they face sa mga Filipino population due to taxation, as well as any injustices or inequalities within this system. Thank you so much and have a great day.